Welcome, welcome, welcome to Marriage Clinic Live. So we have gone live now. So let's start inviting others because we have started. Amen. Amen. Our families go better. Everything go better. Amen. 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 So let's start inviting others. We have started. Amen. Amen. Yes, we started now. Amen, 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 amen. Amen. So let's start sharing with others. We are about to start. Amen. Amen, amen. Woo! Welcome, 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 welcome to another edition of Marriage Clinic Live. How are you today? I remain your host, Moralaya Ann Ofuti. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited about today's event because I mean, we are going to be learning a lot. This is an opportunity for us to learn. So like I always say, marriage is a global phenomenon. Marriage is the same all over the world. So we'll be learning from different couples from different countries, and I want to assure you that your time will be worthwhile today. So once again, welcome to another edition of Marriage Clinic Live. Please do endeavor to share this video so that more people will see it. Please do share it. Thank you so much for joining us, for always participating on all our platforms. We are very grateful for your time and your followership. So we'll be going straight to the business of the day. So we have our guests in the house already, and they are fully, prepared for us to impact us. So please stay tuned. I'll be bringing them up shortly, and I want you to know that no knowledge is lost or no knowledge is wasted when you are learning all the time or every day about how to make your marriage work. The information and the knowledge is quite important. So please don't let us play with the things that we're going to be hearing today, because it will go a long way in helping us navigate through our marriages, no matter the stage that you are. So thank you once again for listening. So I'd like to bring up our guests now. They are already in the house. I'd like to introduce to you Andre and Chu Longginou. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Woo!
Hello.
Hi guys. So
Hi.
honored to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you too for coming on Marriage Clinic Live. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We are glad to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
We're definitely looking forward to sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay, so straight to business. I'd like to start now by asking you some of the questions we have mapped out. So I'd like to start by asking, how long have you both been married for? And it appears you are married from a different culture or a different race. So would you like to share with us your experience on that particular question?
Yeah, so we've been married for 3 years now. And as you can see, we're definitely from different background, different culture, from different parts of the world. Shu is from China.
Yeah.
Wow. From China.
From China. She's from China, and I'm from Australia. So, yeah, very different cultural background, different family, different upbringing,
Wow.
different, thinking altogether from another side of the world. We've definitely learned how to love one another and understand each other as best we can, so that we can create our own culture in our own marriage. Instead of just depending on the culture we've come from, we can create our own together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So, was there a time in your marriage that you both felt like, oh, you didn't want this marriage anymore, you are fed up with the marriage, you are just tired, you don't want the marriage anymore, and you went your separate ways?
Yeah, so last year, 2019, we had a very difficult year. We were separated for 2 to 3 months last year. So how it basically started was I had been causing Shu a lot of emotional pain in our dating period and our first year of marriage, but I didn't know that I was causing her pain, and
Wow.
I'm not sure you knew that I was causing you pain.
Yeah, I guess sometimes when you have the experience in something, especially from the person you love most, you kind of just numb to yourself. I wasn't even aware of I was in such extreme pain, like emotional pain that caused by Andre. Until we hit
a critical moment, like an explosion in 2019 when we ended up separating. So basically how I did that was I had a lot of pain and a lot of emotional trauma that was caused in relationships in the past. And I was getting flashback memories and dreams of my ex. I didn't know why I was getting these flashback memories of my ex until, years later. And then I realized it's because I've got pain in my heart. And that's why just like if you stub your toe or you hit your shin or something, it'll send a signal to your brain that you've got pain in your shin. The same thing with the emotions. I learned that it sends a signal in the form of a flashback memory or even a dream sometimes that, hey, I'm in pain. You need to heal emotionally.
Yeah.
And what I learned was simply the way to heal is to forgive that person of the trauma, the hurt that they caused you. But I didn't know that at the time. So I was getting all these flashback memories and telling Shu each day, hey, I had another thought of my ex. And could you imagine how much pain that's going to cause my wife? Or I had this thought of her or whatever. And because I was rejected by my ex, I was desiring acceptance from other women. So that's me being really vulnerable. So I was not understanding how the emotions work. But if you've got a wound of rejection, you'll try and get acceptance from other people. You'll try and get approval. You'll try and take their, get their attention. And it's very unhealthy, very dysfunctional. So I was operating out of dysfunction at that time in my life. So we separated, I think it was February, March of 2019. And I was basically by myself, and I was repenting before God every day, realizing the mistakes that I had made. And I was spending a lot of time with God in prayer. And we had friends around us that we trusted who were giving really quite terrible advice in terms of marriage, telling Shu that we should divorce and, just give up. It's terrible. And Andre, you've got all these issues and you're never going to change, Andre, and all this sort of thing. But in my heart, I chose Shu every day and I didn't give up on our marriage. And, I settled it in my heart of we're married and I'm not going to give up on this marriage. And I believe God for a miracle to join us back together. And I was doing my part, which was repenting before God and realizing the mistakes that I did make. And I was also forgiving a lot. I was forgiving my friends for the terrible advice that they were giving me, the terrible advice they were giving my wife. I was also forgiving Shu as well for, making me feel so rejected in that time too, because I knew it wasn't her fault. I had caused her pain, and all I wanted was this marriage to come back together.
I think for me, that time was very, very difficult. For me, I left Andre and I moved in with our friends. Unfortunately, like sometimes people who you trusted most, but doesn't always give you the helpful advice. So I was told to divorce Andre, and I was told to not contact Andre. So I had like a really tough month where we just have absolutely no communication.
No contact,
yeah. So if you ask me, did I ever like I feel this way, I think when the hurt is so deep, and sometimes that can tempts me to listen to the advice that potentially could hurt my marriage. So because of I had pain, so I feel like, okay, so if I do, like leave Andre, and that probably make me feel better, but actually not. So I guess that's my personal journey in that few months, to really have my own personal conviction, despite what other people say to me in that period of time. So yeah, so eventually I'm like, I love Andre, and I do not want to give up, and so I start seeking professional counselors, Christian counselors advice. So I start seeing the counselors on my side, and then eventually brought Andre to the counselor together. So
yeah, and I think too, like if you give up on one relationship, you've got to think ahead and think, okay, what's going to happen in the next relationship? You'll probably repeat the same thing over and over and over. And it becomes a loop. It becomes a closed loop. You just keep doing the same thing over and over, and you don't know how to fix it, but you keep giving up on the relationship and going to the next one. So we decided we're gonna get through this, and we're gonna solve it, with professional help.
Yeah, and like we really see, God is God of miracle, and also God bless marriages. So in that period of time, and Andre went into this really intense like fasting and intercession for our marriage. He got the personal conviction, like he, God is for our marriage, not against our marriage.
We needed a miracle. We needed nothing short of a miracle. There were people that were saying, hey, listen, I know marriage for 40, 50 years, but mate, if this marriage is going to come together, this is going to be a miracle. So I fasted and I prayed. I interceded. Intercession is obviously different to just normal prayer, but I was really, and I thank God that God is the God of marriage. He's not just pro-marriage. He's not just for marriage. He's the God of marriage.
So many miracles literally happened during that time. And then one day I woke up, I just really had this revelation inside of my spirit, saying Andre is innocent. And start from there, I went to see a GP. GP is like a family doctor, so like a doctor you see in Australia. And randomly, she started talking to me about how God loves me. And in Australia also, like a GP doesn't like
they're not meant to talk about personal things or religion or anything.
And then she offered me to stay with her, like move to her house if I ever need a break from our friend's place. And then from there, it was just like it's so amazing. And fast forward, and then we start seeing the counselors together, and then the counselor, professional counselor, was saying Andre has nothing, like all the accusations from people at that time just fall off. And then in fact, my counselor was telling me I need to be more aware of the environment, and also the advice from our friends are really helpful. They're actually just a very dysfunction. So I decided to move to my GP's place, and the second day I was home with Andre, and it's very it's just nothing but a miracle.
Yeah, so
really.
we were separated for 3 months. It's really important that you have your own personal conviction, even if you're in deep pain and all your friends are saying, yeah, divorce, divorce, divorce. You need to make your own decision. It's your life. You know, and these friends, even if they're really great friends and they're telling you to divorce, it's not the right advice, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for that. So in your coming together, did you think about it like, oh, maybe the fact that we are from different race or different culture? I mean, Chu is from China, Andre is from Australia. Did you ever think that, oh, that would be that, even though you guys come together, that in itself is a major difference that may never make the marriage to work? Did you ever think of that?
Lucky Andre likes to eat Chinese food, so
Chinese food is my favorite. I was a 1-year-old eating Chinese food, going, "Oh, this is the best." So no, but it's not just about food, but you know, culture and background, like you say. But no, that's never crossed my mind. Why should there be some reason in my mind why this marriage shouldn't work? There's absolutely no reason why a marriage shouldn't work.
just simply based on the race or background, you know, like love brought us together. That's and right. God brought us together. So we never had that thoughts in our mind. Well, of course, like all marriages and relationship has its own challenge, but that's just how all relationship works. You know, you work through your challenge and don't give up, and you keep loving on one another. So you're learning this journey together. It's beautiful thing. It's really rewarding.
Yeah, I think expectations are really important as well. If you expect a fairy tale, you're gonna have a rude awakening when you get married, because it's two very different people trying to have one life together and become one person, essentially. It's definitely challenging, but extraordinarily rewarding. Marriage is the most rewarding relationship you'll ever experience on earth. But you've got to be careful of your expectations. So if you expect to fail, then you know
nothing will work.
That's right.
Okay, thank you for that. So this question is for Andre. So being a man of the house, I mean, do you sometimes have issues with ego? So because there is this saying in Africa that, oh, men have ego, as a result they can't do chores, they can't do some things because their ego won't let them, you know, stoop low to get things done in the house. So how would you say you have been able to manage that? Does that apply to you, and what do you say to that?
Okay, good question. So I come from a Greek Cypriot background. So I am Australian, but my dad's Greek Cypriot. In the Greek Cypriot community, they like, you know, masculinity and the culture. And the culture can be, not all the time, but can be quite ego-driven as well. I've definitely come into our dating and marriage with quite a bit of ego. And I've had to learn how to let that go and let that stay in the past for the benefit of my marriage. If I want a really great marriage and I want a really great connection with my darling wife, I'm going to have to sacrifice my ego, and I'm going to have to let some of those things go that were cool culturally, but they're just not going to help me. They're just not going to benefit my future or my marriage or my family or my children. So I'm just going to have to leave those things in the past. Also, I based my marriage on a scripture in the Bible, Ephesians 5, 25 to 33. It's a really important one for me. It says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So Jesus obviously died for all of mankind so that they have an opportunity to be saved. But it says here that he loved the church and he gave himself up. So he sacrificed his own life for his own wife, right? Which is a symbol of his church.
Wow.
So in the same way, it says husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. It says he who loves his wife loves himself, for no one hated his own body, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church. So if I love myself, I'm going to love my wife. You know, so I should treat her as my own body. If I mistreat her, I'm only hurting myself and my own life as well. So it's actually, in a way, like if you are selfish, you should actually love your wife even more and nourish and cherish her, because she's going to directly impact my life in every way, shape, and form.
True.
You know, every day, if she's upset, it's going to upset me. If she's happy, it's going to make me happy. It's really important that I actually sacrifice my needs and myself for the happiness and the betterment of my wife. Not that my wife then uses that as an opportunity to be selfish or harmful to me.
Is that both ways?
Yeah, but we both sacrifice for one another to serve each other and love each other. I used to think it was unmanly to serve a woman until I got married, and then I learned actually serving my wife actually makes her happy and actually makes me more happy, and I get to become or I get to be more like Christ.
Yeah.
You know,
when you save each other, I mean, it makes you happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it you know, our connection can be so sweet. You know, if I love my wife and serve her, I have so much more enjoyment in our connection and our love.
Yeah.
But if I'm serving myself, like even for 1 week, I can tell it's a big difference.
Yeah.
My wife won't be herself. We won't have the connection that we normally have. There won't be sweetness in our marriage. And quickly you start to get upset with one another. So it's best that I really serve her and love her with all my heart.
But that's definitely a learning journey
Yeah.
for both of us.
And you get better with time.
Yeah. So we're all, you know, like selfish before we met each other or before we come to marriage.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess, that's the beauty of marriage is really know how to, you know, like from two people become one person.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so what would you say about spouses that fight a lot? So, for example, the husband and wife, they are always fighting, always quarreling. They seem not to understand each other. What would you say to that? What do you think is causing that, and what can they do to avoid the frequent clashes, friction, and quarrels?
Yeah, good question. I've just made a video actually on YouTube talking about arguments and confrontation.
Wow.
It's so important not to take things personally. So, for example, if Shu's really upset about something, how does it help me if I just start screaming back? Then there's two people that are screaming at each other, and you're operating from a part of the brain called the amygdala. When you're angry and you're emotional, it switches off logic, and it's going to really hurt your relationship. So if one of the spouses is yelling and screaming and angry, very emotional, it's so important for the other person not to engage anger, not to engage yelling and screaming back. The reason why they'd yell and scream back is because maybe ego is in the way. So they need to be very, very calm. You need to stay very, very calm. Don't take it personally. Sit down. Help the other person to calm down by using soft, gentle words. A gentle word turns away wrath, Proverbs talks about. So it's important that you're very gentle with them until they calm down, and then you can have a conversation about what's really wrong.
Yeah.
What's really wrong. And then you'll probably find a place that you've hurt your spouse in the past. And then once you apologize, you get forgiveness, and then your spouse is going to be healed. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is, if you really just can't get through it and you just keep clashing, go and see a professional counselor, sit down with them, and they'll teach you how to communicate. And you pick up tools when you're with counselors. You can communicate. You can actually get to the root issue. You can actually fix it, solve it, get healing in your heart, and then have a much better marriage.
Yeah. And then this is something we have recently learned from of like a couple of friends. So you know, like I guess for women, at least for me, so I have all these emotions coming up to my you know, to my heart, and actually sometimes it's really hard for me to articulate what really upset me. So this couple, so our friends, they have this diary, say dear, you know, husband's name or dear wife's name. So instead of like, you know, bring the emotions into the conversation, become an argument, and just, you know, like couldn't get the real root is. So if I sit down before I talk to Andre, just write down, dear Andre, you know, these are few dot points. By doing so, you kind of can analyzing your own emotions and just to really look deep into the real issue, and you write down a few different points, and then you can sit down, you know, talk properly, like communicate to really find the solution for that issue instead of just screaming at each other about your own emotions. So that's that's definitely something that's very helpful as well.
We definitely know the difference because we've definitely done both. I know what it's like when if she's very emotional and she's bringing that to me, and if I just jump in and I'm super emotional back, it's just we're just going to be in another loop and we're not going to get anywhere.
That's true.
Yeah.
And also just like want to encourage all the couple as well, you know, like it's healthy to bring the issue to the table, to talk to your spouse about it, because obviously like you care this relationship enough to want to communicate and want to find a solution. This is absolutely really good starting point. And I guess now just like coming to the point, like how we communicate, like clearly how we communicate in a healthy way to solve the issue, and you can move on and love each other.
It's how you communicate is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You do need to communicate it, just do it in a healthy way. And we're all growing. So
that's true. Okay, thank you for that. So this question is for Chu. What qualities do you think a woman should look out for in a man that she wants to marry? I mean, what qualities were you looking out for when you were searching for your husband? And I mean, if we were to advise younger women or younger ladies trying to go into marriage, what qualities should they be looking for in a man that they want to spend the rest of their lives with?
Okay, really good question. We've actually shared our first part of our story on YouTube as well, in our channel, about how we come together. So I guess my personal journey before was I purposely, because I feel lonely, so I purposely looking for this right person in my life. But I find that actually hurting me so much because I didn't know what I'm looking for. And I guess for me, what I have learned from my past experiences, I look to God, and then He knows who my future husband is instead of chasing men, because you know, no man is perfect. They could potentially hurt my heart if they don't know who they are, if they don't know what they're looking for. So for me, I'm just thinking for my future husband, that time I just feel okay, so I can pray about it. And also I just need to know that, you know, especially what Andre and I have been through last year. So this man has a genuine relationship with God himself, and then knowing who he is, and knowing, you know, like what value he has upon a woman. Does that make sense? And so that's very important. And the other thing is humility. So what Andre inspired me most all these years is how flexible he is. He's willing to change and he's willing to communicate. So that's very important as well.
Okay, thank you for that. So another question, okay, maybe for both of you, is that do you think the success of a marriage depends largely on the man or on the woman? I mean, because some people believe that, oh, the success of a marriage depends largely on the woman, while some will say, oh, the success of the marriage depends largely on the man. What do you think? Is it dependent on one party alone, or is dependent on both parties playing their roles well?
Okay.
Yeah, I think the answer comes when you put your theory to the test. So if you think it's all dependent on the man, pretty quickly you'll fail. If you think it's all on the woman, you'll fail as well. We started marriage thinking it's got to be 50-50. But what we realized is it's actually got to be 100% of effort and 100% of effort on both the man and the woman. It has to be 100. Otherwise, you'll quickly fail. You actually have to give everything you've got as a man and everything you've got as a woman.
Yeah, and then before we got married, we often hear people saying, like, I hope I can find my better half. So, that kind of like half, like you're not half person, you're a whole person. Yeah. And the only like now from our journey is like only one, like I'm hold myself as a whole person so I can love Andre well, and when Andre takes responsibility for his part and he can love me well. So absolutely you're gonna give everything you have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So two more questions and we start wrapping up. So another question is about in-laws. So Chu is from China, Andre is from Australia, so definitely your parents are from different roots. Now, how do you see your in-laws? Because here in Africa, at times some people see their in-laws as, oh, my in-law is my rival, is my enemy, or they don't want to see in-laws around and things like that. But in your own case, considering the fact that Andre went all the way to China, to pick a wife, how are you able to manage the relationship with your in-laws, considering they are from a different continent and raised all together?
Yeah, so if I look at my in-laws as enemies, where that starts in my mind, then I'm not going to get along with them when I go and see them. So you've really got to be very careful with what you're believing and what you're thinking. Yeah. So that's definitely what world culture says is, in-laws, they're no good, or they're your enemies, or they're your rival, but it's not true at all. Like, we can respect and honor and love our in-laws and not necessarily agree with everything they do or say, but you can still love, respect, and honor them.
True.
They're never enemies, they're never rivals, and they should never be that way. I mean, you should try and make an ally out of everyone by really honoring and loving them. That's something that's really big in Christianity, is honor. And I think we can definitely get a lot better at it. But it's something that Shu and I are learning at the moment is, if I want to draw the best out of someone, I have to honor them, really honor them and love them. And I can draw the best out of them. And then I benefit from who they are as a person.
Yeah.
Also, too, like the Bible talks about leaving your mother and father and cleaving to your wife, as in a husband should leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife and become one flesh. So Shu and I have the opportunity to make, like I said earlier in the broadcast, to create our own culture, to create our own family, instill our own values and convictions that we have. So we are going to be different to our parents and their generation and their culture, and that's okay. We can still love our in-laws.
Yeah, absolutely. And then come down to, it's the same how you choose your spouse every day. That's the personal conviction. I think, so at the moment we live with Andre's parents, and we see we have very different values, probably they believe something very different from what Andre and I would believe as a family. But now we just love them and we choose to honor them, like Andre said. And that's just a decision you need to make. And once you make that decision, it's actually you'll feel like, yeah, it's all relationship can be sweet. It just depends on what you believe for and what you stand for as well. There definitely will be a temptation where you just feel you have different expectations of what your in-law would look like, or what would they do for you, or things like that. But again, I guess we just shouldn't put our expectations on other people. It's people are different. You just own for us, we want to embrace the difference, and then we actually see the relationship between my parents and Andre and my relationship with his parents is actually really great. We really enjoy each other.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So the last one in 2 minutes, quickly tell us. So what advice would you give to couples who are currently struggling with their marriage and are thinking of quitting? They seem to be fed up. They want to quit. So what advice do you have for them? And what other thing do you like to tell us?
Yeah.
If someone wants to reach you, they want to know more about what you're doing, how would they reach you?
Yeah, okay, really good question. So that, what advice would I have? It would take hours to cover all that. But, be careful of your expectations. Don't expect a fairy tale. But also, there's so much pleasure and so much reward from this beautiful relationship called marriage. So, value it, but don't expect a fairy tale either. Don't nag your spouse either. Use communication, and what we rely on a lot is intercession, actually is prayer. Get a counselor, an expert to sit down with often. We still sit down with our counselor often. If we're clashing on something, can't resolve it, we'll go to our counselor, pick up more tools that we can apply to our own marriage and continue to use long term. We'll always have professionals and experts and a really good support structure around our marriage.
I just quickly jump in. So there's no shame for a couple to seek for help, because it's like sometimes we do checkups, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean your marriage is in danger, so you need someone to come and rescue you. But it's just a normal checkups. It's for marriage healthy anyways. So there's absolutely no shame, to talk to a third party. In fact, we're still learning in our journey, how to, learn from the experienced marriage couple. So
yeah.
The
other really big one is emotional pain is healed by forgiving.
Yeah.
It's so important. It's such a big thing that we've learned is forgiveness releases the pain from your heart. You let that stuff go. You stop holding on to that stuff, because it's only poisoning you. It's poisoning your heart. It actually has an effect on not just your soul, but also on your body. It actually really affects your physical health as well. So important to get rid of the pain by forgiving. And choose your spouse every day. Love isn't just it's not just an emotion that you feel. It's a choice.
Decision.
It's a daily decision, a daily choice. I choose Shu every single day, and I thank God for Shu. It keeps my heart humble, and it keeps my heart grateful, and it keeps me loving my wife as I ought to.
Yeah, especially in difficulty times, we still need to choose each other and just really remind ourselves, this is the choice I made. and despite how I feel
Yeah.
today. And the other thing is like no man's perfect, you know, like all relationships takes effort and time and energy and investment. So you have to, you know, just like put everything into this relationship, make it work. Because if today Andre upset me and I feel like, okay, I'm gonna leave this marriage, and then who am I running to? Like if next relationship, the next relationship is gonna be the same. We're dealing with humans, you know, like no humans are perfect. But the thing is like it really takes two decisions and to make the marriage working towards perfection. So yeah, like God never give up on us just because we have flaws or weaknesses. So same as marriage, like that's just the most beautiful representation of how you know our relationship with God is. So yeah, just like don't give up, keep fighting for your marriage, and just really remember that, you know, like when you first encounter this person, like what, you know, like be grateful. I just sometimes remind each other, hey, I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, and we can definitely be found on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel there. We'll pass that link on to you, Moralea, and maybe you can put that out. But
your YouTube channel is Andre and Chu, right?
Yeah.
Andre and Longginou, the whole name. Yeah.
Okay. So that's very good. So thank you so much, Andre and Chu, for honoring our invitation. We have learned a lot from you today. Thank you for those impactful words. I hope our viewers out there have heard all that you have said. You talked about choosing a professional counselor when couples are going through crisis is very important, that they get help and support quickly, you know, before things fall out of hands. And you talked about managing our expectation. I mean, don't always think it's a fairy tale. Marriage is serious business and it's hard work. So you don't go into it casually thinking, oh, you are going into a fairy tale movie. You know, you talked about forgiveness. You talked about quite a number of things. So I hope our viewers out there would take time out to listen to this video again and again, you know, especially for those struggling in their marriage, so that you can pick the lessons and apply it to your marriage, because it will help you a lot in resolving issues. So thank you so much, Andre and Chu. Greetings to the Chinese community and the Australian community over there. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
having us. And yeah, we bless every marriage out there, and really wish everyone the very best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So we have come to the end of today's segment. Thank you so much for joining us. I remain your host, Moralai and Okwiti. Please endeavor to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video if you like what we have done, and please do subscribe. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more. Thank you so much for joining us. Till we meet again. Say bye-bye.